The moment that shattered me happened in front of everyone I loved, and I still hear it echoing in my head like it just happened yesterday. On my son's birthday, with balloons brushing the ceiling and people clapping around us, I stepped forward to hug him, and he shoved me away so hard I almost lost my balance. He looked straight at me with eyes full of something cold and sharp and said, "Don't touch me. You can't see me." The room went dead silent. Every smile froze, every camera lowered, and in that split second, I realized my own child hated me. So tell me honestly, before you judge me for anything else I'm about to say, was I wrong for what I did after that, or would you have snapped too? I guess I should start from the beginning, because moments like that don't come out of nowhere. They're built slowly, brick by brick, over years of choices, mistakes, sacrifices, and misunderstandings. I became a mother when I was 22, too young, people said. Not ready, they said. But when I held my son for the first time, none of that mattered. It was just me and him. I named him Adam because it felt like a new beginning, like my life finally had a clear purpose. His father, my then husband, was there in the hospital room, holding my hand and crying harder than I was. For a while, we looked like one of those perfect families you see in photo frames at furniture stores. Those early years were exhausting but happy. Adam was a quiet baby, the kind who would just stare at you like he was studying your soul. He rarely cried, and when he did, it was usually because he was hungry or uncomfortable. I used to joke that he was already judging me. I worked part-time back then, mostly from home, so I could be with him. His father worked long hours, but when he came home, he'd scoop Adam up and walk around the house talking to him like he was an adult. We dreamed big. Good schools, family vacations, college funds, the whole picture. Things started changing when Adam was around 5. Nothing dramatic at first, just little shifts. His father became distant, distracted. Always on his phone, always working late. I felt it in my gut before I ever had proof. The late nights turned into weekends away. The excuses piled up, thin and see-through. When I finally confronted him, I wasn't even angry. I was tired. He admitted it without much resistance. There was someone else, a coworker. He said it had just happened. Like that made it better. I remember sitting at the kitchen table, staring at a crack in the wall, wondering how my life had split so cleanly in two. The divorce was messy, even though we both tried to keep it civil for Adam's sake. He was still young enough that he didn't fully understand, but old enough to feel the tension. We agreed on shared custody at first. Weekdays with me, weekends with his father. I made a point of never bad-mouthing his dad in front of him. No matter how angry I felt, I swallowed it. I told myself that loving Adam meant protecting his relationship with both parents. Financially, things got hard fast. I had to switch to full-time work. Long hours, tight budgets, constant stress. There were nights I cried quietly after Adam fell asleep, feeling like I was failing him in ways he was too young to name. But I showed up. Every school event, every parent-teacher meeting, every scraped knee. I packed his lunches with little notes inside. I learned his favorite cartoons, his favorite snacks, the way he liked his toast cut. I thought that was enough. I thought love and effort would carry us through anything. When Adam was 8, his father remarried. That's when things really shifted. His new wife was younger than me, polished, always smiling in a way that felt rehearsed. She had money, or at least came from it. Big house, nice car, vacations I couldn't afford. Adam started coming back from weekends talking about how cool his dad's place was. The pool, the game room, the big backyard. I smiled and listened even when it stung. I told myself it was normal. Kids like shiny things, but then the comments started. Little ones at first. Dad says you worry too much. Or at Dad's house, we don't have to eat vegetables all the time. I brushed them off, laughed along, but something twisted in my chest each time. It felt like I was slowly being compared and found lacking, and Adam didn't even realize he was doing it. As he got older, he grew more distant. Preteen attitude, everyone said. Totally normal, but it wasn't just eye rolling or sarcasm. It was like a wall going up between us. He stopped telling me about his day. He stayed in his room more. When I asked questions, his answers were clipped, almost annoyed. Meanwhile, his father seemed to be stepping up in ways I couldn't. New phone, new clothes, trips. I was still counting pennies, still exhausted, still trying to hold everything together. The worst part was how invisible I started to feel in my own home. I'd talk, and Adam would barely look up from his screen. I'd ask for help with chores, and he'd sigh like I'd asked for something unreasonable. I tried grounding him once for talking back, and he told his father, who called me and said I was being too harsh. That was the first time I felt truly undermined as a parent. By the time Adam turned 13, he asked if he could live with his dad full-time. He framed it like it was about school, about opportunities, about being closer to friends. I knew what it really was. It felt like someone had reached into my chest and ripped something out, but I agreed, because I thought that if I said no, I'd be the villain, because I thought that loving him meant letting him choose, even if it destroyed me a little. The house felt empty without him, too quiet. I still texted him every day, good morning messages, good luck on tests, I love you. Sometimes he replied, sometimes he didn't. When he did, it was usually short. Thanks. Okay, busy. I told myself he was just a teenager, that this phase would pass. Years went by like that. We saw each other on holidays, birthdays, the occasional dinner. Each time he felt a little farther away. Taller, broader, more like a stranger who happened to share my face. His father and stepmother hovered around him like proud managers, always talking about his achievements, sports, grades, college prospects. I clapped and smiled and swallowed the ache in my throat. Then came his 18th birthday, the big one, a milestone. His father decided to throw a huge party. Not just family, but friends, extended relatives, neighbors. He invited me, of course. I debated not going. Part of me wanted to avoid the pain, the awkwardness, but another part of me clung to hope. Hope that maybe, just maybe, this birthday would be a turning point. That he'd see me, that he'd remember. I bought him a gift I'd been saving up for. Nothing flashy, but meaningful. Something related to what he loved as a kid. Something that said, I remember who you are. I wrapped it carefully, hands shaking more than I wanted to admit. I practiced what I'd say to him in the mirror. Nothing dramatic. Just, happy birthday. I'm proud of you. The party was everything I expected and more. Loud music, expensive decorations, people laughing and drinking. I felt out of place the moment I walked in, like I was wearing the wrong costume to the wrong event. Adam was surrounded by friends, confident, smiling. He looked happy. That should have been enough. I told myself that over and over. When it was time for the cake, everyone gathered around. Cameras came out. Someone called for Adam's parents to stand next to him. I hesitated, then stepped forward. His father stood on one side, his stepmother on the other. I was left hovering, unsure. Finally, I moved closer, reaching out instinctively, like I had 1,000 times before when he was small. That's when it happened. He shoved my hands away hard, and then those words fell out of his mouth like a slap. Don't touch me, you can't see me. I didn't even fully understand what he meant at first. My ears rang, my face burned. I could feel every pair of eyes on me, hear the sudden hush. He kept going, voice loud, almost rehearsed, talking about how I was never there, how I didn't understand him, how I was stuck in the past. Each word felt like a blade. I wanted the ground to swallow me. I wanted to scream, to cry, to disappear. Instead, I stood there frozen, holding a gift that suddenly felt stupid and small. I don't remember what I said. I don't remember if I said anything at all. I just remember leaving, walking out with my head down, my heart in pieces. That night changed something in me, and what I did next is what people still argue about. But before I tell you that, before I go any further, I want you to really sit with this. Imagine raising someone, sacrificing for them, loving them in ways they may never fully understand, only to be humiliated like that in front of everyone. If that were you, What would you have done next? Pause for a second and think about it, because when I tell you how I responded, you might judge me, or you might finally understand why I did what I did. When I walked out of that party, the night air hit me like a wall. I could still feel the shove of his hands, hear his voice echoing over the laughter and clinking of glasses behind me. I didn't drive. I just wandered, hands in my pockets, feeling hollow in a way I didn't think was possible. Every street lamp flickered over empty roads, and I felt like the only person left in the world. I replayed the moment over and over. Don't touch me, you can't see me. His words weren't just rejection, they were an accusation, a verdict. They made me question everything. My love, my choices, my worth as a mother. I had tried to do everything right, and yet here I was, discarded like a mistake. I found myself at a park I used to take him to when he was little, the swings creaking in the cold wind, and I sat on one, rocking slowly, tears freezing on my cheeks. I needed clarity. I needed a plan. I needed to understand why my own son had turned into someone so cold and distant, and I realized that waiting, hoping, or begging for him to come back to me wasn't enough anymore. I had to act. The next few days were the hardest I've ever lived. I didn't eat properly. I didn't sleep. Every time my phone buzzed, I jumped, hoping it was him, hoping for some sign that he still cared. Nothing. The texts I sent went unread, calls unanswered. The rational part of me told me to step back, to give him space, but my heart was screaming for confrontation. I started going through old photos, memories of us laughing, playing, celebrating little victories. I wanted to understand when it had all gone wrong, when my love stopped being enough. I found the photo from his first day of kindergarten, and for the first time I cried in a way that wasn't just grief, it was rage. Rage at circumstances, at his father, at myself, and maybe a little at him. I knew then that this was not something I could fix with apologies. This was bigger. I needed to find a way to break through the wall he had built around himself. I started talking to people who had been in similar situations, friends, therapists, even online forums. One particular thread struck me. A mother had gone through almost the same thing. Her son refused to acknowledge her, emotionally shut down completely. She had waited, yes, but she also found ways to create moments he couldn't ignore. Moments that reminded him of their bond before resentment and distance had seeped in. I realized I couldn't fight him with words alone. I had to fight him with presence, with subtle, undeniable reminders that our connection was still alive, buried under anger, under influence, under fear. That week, I made a plan that I swore I would follow, no matter what it cost me. The first step was to reestablish presence without intrusion. I began showing up in ways he couldn't dismiss. I started sending little gifts, not expensive ones, but meaningful ones. A book he once loved, a snack he had mentioned in passing months ago, a handwritten note tucked inside like I had done when he was small. I sent these to him at college, knowing he would open them alone, in private. Each time, I imagined him reading, imagining me sitting somewhere, watching, hoping. I also started leaving small, thoughtful gestures when I visited his apartment. Plants, snacks, small things that didn't scream intrusion but silently said, I see you, I care, I'm still here. I refused to overdo it, refused to guilt him. It was a delicate balance. Every gesture had to carry love without demand, because I knew that pushing him too hard would only drive him further away. Weeks passed, and slowly, almost imperceptibly, things began to change. At first, it was tiny. A text back, short but polite. A thank you note, almost dismissive. I didn't celebrate yet, because I knew this was a long game. But I started noticing patterns. He was reading the books I sent. Snacks disappeared. Little messages were left behind, unsigned but unmistakably from him. The first real breakthrough came one night when he called me. Just called me. No video, no explanations, just a voice. He sounded awkward, almost defensive, but he asked a small question about one of the books I'd sent. That was it. That was all it took for me to feel hope flare inside me, cautious but real. I stayed calm, kept my voice steady, not letting him sense the storm of emotions inside me. We talked for a few minutes before he hung up abruptly, but he had reached out. He had chosen to speak. That night, I cried with relief, exhaustion, and an unfamiliar sense of power. I was starting to reach him again. The following months were a mix of victories and setbacks. Some days he was distant again, cold, sharp. I had to remind myself constantly that healing isn't linear. Every setback was a test, a chance to be patient, to be present, to show unconditional love without expectation. I kept doing what had begun to work: subtlety, consistency, quiet gestures that couldn't be ignored, and occasional heartfelt messages that didn't demand but invited dialogue. I also began documenting everything, notes to myself about his reactions, what worked, what didn't, learning his rhythms, his emotional cues. Slowly, my presence became familiar again, a constant in the periphery of his life that he couldn't deny. Then came the moment I had been waiting for, the real test. Adam invited me to dinner at his apartment. No announcement, no fanfare, just a simple, unexpected gesture. I almost didn't recognize it for what it was: a bridge being extended across years of hurt. But I accepted immediately, heart pounding. When I arrived, I was nervous, unsure if he would even let me in, unsure if this was a trap, unsure if I was setting myself up for humiliation again. But the door opened, and there he was. Taller, stronger, but still my boy in ways I could see when he let his guard down for a fraction of a second. He didn't hug me at first. He didn't apologize immediately. We sat, ordered food, and started talking. Simple things at first: college, classes, mutual friends. But gradually the conversation deepened. We laughed at inside jokes only we shared, memories he hadn't mentioned to anyone else. He looked at me without suspicion, without defiance, just recognition, just Adam. I realized in that moment that the work I had done, months of patience, of persistence, of quiet love, was starting to bear fruit. And then the real breakthrough came. After dinner, he said something I never thought I'd hear. "I didn't know you cared this much. I thought you didn't see me." I felt my chest tighten, tears threatening again, but I held them back. I nodded, voice steady but soft. "I've always seen you, Adam. Even when it felt like you couldn't see me, I never stopped seeing you." That moment, those words, were like a crack in the wall he had built around himself. It wasn't a sudden reconciliation, not by any means, but it was the beginning of the undoing of years of pain. He didn't hug me immediately, but later, as he walked me to the door, he reached out hesitantly. I mirrored his motion. Our hands met awkwardly, gently, and for the first time in years I felt that connection, the unspoken bond between mother and son, start to reassert itself. Since that night, our relationship hasn't been perfect. It's a slow rebuilding process. There are still arguments, misunderstandings, moments of tension, but there's also laughter, shared memories, and a growing trust. I've learned that love isn't always about dramatic gestures or grand apologies. Sometimes it's about showing up consistently, quietly, even when it hurts. Sometimes it's about letting the other person lead the way back to you. And I've also learned that children, even adults, carry their own baggage, fears, and misconceptions. My job isn't to erase their pain, but to be a steady presence they can count on when they're ready to heal. So here I am, sharing this with you, not to boast or claim victory, but to offer a perspective I wish I'd known earlier. Parenting is messy, and sometimes the people we love most push us away. But persistence, patience, and unconditional love can break through even the coldest walls. If you find yourself in a similar position, don't give up entirely. Sometimes the bridge back is built one small, quiet gesture at a time. If you've ever had to fight for someone's love or rebuild a relationship you thought was lost, like this video, subscribe for more stories like this, and share your final thoughts in the comments. Tell me, would you have given up, or would you have fought the way I did? I'll see you all in the next story.